it's not already in your inbox, the instructions for writing the final paper will be in your inbox during today. If they are not, however, you just tell me tomorrow, okay? Because some of the mails tend to come back or lose the attachment or something like that. It would be very easy. It would be very easy. So yesterday we had a kind of the nice introduction day, and we start by trying to define what a nonviolent conflict is. And we said that we are looking at it as a form of warfare. And whether we are looking at it as a warfare for political power or warfare for political and social space, this is an asymmetric conflict. And one side doesn't have the military option. That doesn't necessarily mean that that side wouldn't try or use military option if it have it. But let's say this is the story about boxing with Tyson. So one side just decides they're not going to box with Mike Tyson, they're going to play chess. And then we have this asymmetric warfare. And then we walked through the history a little bit and looked at the consequences of variety of military conflicts and unarmed conflicts. And we noted that there are dramatic consequences of certain nonviolent conflicts in history, whether this is the beginning of the end of the colonialism as we know it, coming from Gandhian struggle, or the beginning of the collapse of the Soviet Union, coming from the struggle of Lech Walesa, but in both cases, these consequences are pretty big. And then we talked a little bit about how do we understand and structure this story of nonviolent struggle. And we mentioned the importance of having the vision, or let's say the clear answer to where do we want to be once this struggle is over. And how the strategy is not more about the means to get there. And we mentioned the basic principles of war and Sun Tzu, and said how it is important to understand that this is very much like climbing the stairs. So you need to pick the battle you can win, you win this battle, you proclaim the victory, you get the hell out of there. So you build a little bit of your authority, a little bit of your human resource, a little bit of the material resource, and then you are ready for the next, a little bit bigger step. And then we try to define the political power. And aside of the complicated scientific definitions, we define that power in the society comes from the people. And we were looking at the two different models. One is pyramidal model, where power is coming from the top to the bottom, and you learn how to easily dismantle a professor from the class by small acts of disobedience. But to win in such a conflict, you need numbers. And these numbers are very important. So the real trick in making a nonviolent movement is how to make people join. And we discussed a little bit why people join the groups and how it is very important for the people to feel that they're the part of the group. And this is the place where we define the thing we call political movement. So this is not a bunch of the people protesting against this or standing for that. We have a set of values, we have the elements of the group identity. And then we define the different set of values, define the different elements of group identity. We're also talking about the role of the leadership and how one of the most common misconceptions is related to the fact that there are several nonviolent struggles which had a charismatic leader. So immediately people think all you need for a successful movement is that big guy standing on the top giving a nice speech about how he has a dream. But then we were looking at another struggles and say, okay, but we had the cases where you had the more symbolic leaders, or you have cases where the elements of the group identities were more like singing and colors and stuff like that. And then we were looking at the several different movements, and you've done a very, very nice analysis of different things, like the Polish one, the South African one, the Tibetan one. So we were going through all of these introductions. We ended up defining the political power coming from 6 different sources. We mentioned authority, human resources, skills and knowledge, material resources, and sanctions. We also mentioned how it is an intangible factor which you need to understand in order to operate in a certain society. And we can't really define it because it's intangible, but it's a set of the rules and traditions and religions and the way the people behave in a certain society. So we will talk more about every single specific society, but we need to understand that while there are some rules which are applicable to any single struggle, there are several things which are unique for every struggle. So you can't really copy-paste nonviolent revolution. This is not possible. However, you can copy-paste violent revolution, and this is where we define how important it is that the one is different from another when it comes to numbers. At the end, Slobo was telling you the story about the building of the government standing on the pillars, which is going to be the most of today's day. We will try to define these pillars and analyze these pillars and try to understand how these pillars function. He also introduced you to this concept of the push versus pull. And this is probably the biggest difference between armed conflict and the nonviolent struggle. In the armed conflict, you go to destroy your enemy's infrastructure, his manpower, his capability to wage war. You go after the things like, bridges, roads, military buildings, barracks, airports. You go and destroy these things. In nonviolent struggle, you pull people out. And if we were the group of the activists from Syria, in a hotel in Antalya, Turkey, for example, what would basically happen is that I would borrow a mattress from my room. And I will show you the practical exercise how the nonviolent struggle function. And you would pull up this big thing in front of your head, and then I would try by pushing. So I'll go around you, it's like there will be 10 of you, holding this thing. And when I push you, the only thing which would happen, you go deeper under the structure. And then the structure will become even more stable. But if I try to giggle you, it is very likely that you will start running throughout from this structure. And of course, I will start with easier pillars, small girls first. So this is how you target the students, youth, all of these pillars which are normally more variable. Among that, you will try to target these pillars. But guess what? Even if you guys leave the structure is still standing. Until you take out one of these two big guys, where they're military, police. So you look at the crucial pillars and you target them and you try to pull them out of the structure, and eventually the building falls. This phenomenon we call sympathetic detonation. There is a certain pillar, when this pillar collapses, the whole structure collapses. And when you look at it in the Serbian struggle, you had a dictator who was really trying to create the military out of the police. Serbian police was well equipped, well paid. They even had the general ranks and the structure as the military, because he could easily control the police. They were in charge for breaking all the demonstrations, surveilling on the opposition. They had helicopters and stuff like that. They were in charge for war crimes in places like Kosovo. The military was conscription military. So the guy knew that because you had these boys from 18 to 21 in the military, he could never be sure where they will turn their rifles. So the military was somehow aside throughout the struggle. And today when we talk about the power graph and how the different pillars were supporting government in different time frame, you will see that the military was more or less neutral throughout the Serbian conflict. Very unlike police, which was strictly affiliated with the regime. So the day the police refused the command to shoot into demonstrators, October 5th, 2000, the regime collapsed. So you need to pull the biggest pillar out, and then the whole structure falls down. It was very similar with the military in Egypt. Mubarak was standing on two legs. One was international community, another one was powerful military. The moment where people were capable to persuade the international community that this is not jihad revolution, and the moment they were capable of persuading the top of the military that the only way for them to survive is to get rid of Mubarak, he was history. So, but this is not spontaneous thing where people go on the street. From day one, they were putting kids on the tanks and flowers. So when you look at designed nonviolent revolution, you can see that there is a strategy there. And today or tomorrow we'll spend some time watching one of these clips from Al Jazeera, and you will see how these guys were structuring their struggle. So part of today's work will be to analyze the pillars of certain society and how they move. In the exercise Slobo will present to you, we call power graph, very soon. But I will start with what lies in the real heart of the political power, and this is obedience. So we'll try to examine the psychological phenomenon of obedience, because we were what's the most important sentence you learned yesterday? If people do not obey, rulers cannot rule. So what is this thing we call obedience, and where the hell this thing is coming from? Why do people obey?
Fear.
Fear. Sometimes people obey, yes? Personal enrichment, yes. Sometimes it's very, how to say, profitable, lucrative for you to obey, yes. Stability, yes. I don't want to shake this boat. This is our country. You don't shake the country in the time of the crisis. What else? Safety. It's also a good point, yes? Apathy. We can't do it. I can't change anything. Everything will stay the same forever. I'm just a little somebody. Who the hell I am to change the stuff? Yes. What else? Societal norms. Yes, sometimes you have societies in which obedience is a norm. I mean, look at the Asians. These people are fascinating. Look at the way the Japanese culture functions, or Chinese culture, or Vietnamese culture. People have there is a tradition of being obedient to their superiors, and this is the part of the job. This is so unlikely the mentality where I'm coming from, this lovely thing we call Mediterranean nationalism, which connects Serbs, Italians, Spaniards, Northern Africans, including Egyptians. We are big teenagers. The best way to make a Serb to do a thing is strictly to prohibit a Serb to do that thing. And this is where the Serb will go, exactly in a different direction. And this is the part of the mentality. But we keep forgetting one very important reason why people obey. It's habit. Since the very childhood, you obey to your parents. Then you obey to your teachers in school. Then you keep obeying the professors in the university if the professor doesn't teach you how to dismantle him. And then you keep obeying your superiors in the military. You keep obeying your bosses at work. Some of us even need to obey their wives every day. So when you look at these things, this is the habit of the obedience. So here we are with a bunch of the stuff, and intentionally what this sign says. It says stop. What do you do when you see a stop sign in a deserted intersection in the middle of the nowhere at 2 a.m.? You stop. You're obeying even the symbols of the state authority, like the traffic sign. There's nobody to tape you, there are no cameras, there are no policemen, but you instinctively stop. This is how this habit is strong. And of course, we can argue and say, okay, but it is in your personal interest to stop. Or you can say you stop because you have a fear that the camera will tape you and you will get fined. And then somebody else can say you stop because of your self-interest, because obviously you don't want to have a car crash. But whatever is the reason, you stop. It's important. The real thing is important, what is happening in the real time. So people do obey because of habit, self-interest, fear of sanctions, zone of indifference, absence of self-confidence, moral obligations. Sometimes people obey because of the psychological identification with their rulers. Chavez was a master of deception. Even his supporters are called Chavistas. This is the new model of Latin American socialism. You don't even look at the fact that people live poorly, they have a bad public service, and their infrastructure is like shit with all of this oil, because people identify with their leader. He's the protector of the poor, whatever. So the state propaganda, look at the Mugabe. He was the guy pushing the Zimbabwe through the tough times of the anti-colonial struggle, which is why he is the father of the nation. So we love the father of the nation. In North Korea, we love even the father of the nation, and we pay honors to the father of the father of the father of the nation. And they are the chosen one. People psychologically identify with their rulers. When Serbian strongman Tito, 1980, I was devastated. I was 7. I was devastated. I couldn't stop crying. I really loved the guy. Propaganda, decent life, whatever is the reason, but I was psychologically identified with this guy. And by the way, I was right, because country fell apart 10 years after, but that's yet another story. So superhuman factors. Helplessness. Majority doing it. How do you say, go with the flow? It's like, everybody else is doing it, so why would I shake this boat? So the real trick in nonviolent struggle is to understand these patterns and break them down. Every single one of them. Like Slobo says yesterday, look at the business community. They may say it is in our best self-interest to support this government, but you can persuade them that it is maybe in their self-interest to support the opposition as well, because you never know. So these guys are always playing a roulette, putting some coins on black, putting some coins on red. And whatever comes out, they win. You can talk to the police force and say, oh, it's a role of the police to serve and to protect. Wouldn't you rather serve and protect law and order than one family? So, you can work on these self-interests. And then yesterday we were telling the story about how the Serbs shift the fear of sanctions into I want to be arrested, because if I don't get arrested, I don't get late. Nobody wants to hang out with me. Being arrested making me a cool guy. So everybody wants to be arrested, so the sanctions obviously don't work. Because people come out, in American civil rights movement, the people were intentionally filling jails. They were offered to pay a fine, but they wouldn't pay a fine because they wanted to go to the jail. Why? Because there was somebody calculating that in a little jail of Nashville, this is how many people can get arrested. And once we exceed the capacity of the jail, the sanctions will become absolutely senseless. So you can work to break these things one by one. You can irritate people to come from the zone of indifference. You can build people's self-confidence. Yesterday when we were talking why it is so important to be the part of the group, the part of the answer is that you gain a little bit of the self-confidence from the group. Because if the group is successful and cool, then you feel you are successful and cool. And then you have a little bit more courage to do things than you would normally do as an individual. So you can work on every single line of these moral obligation. Every single regime in the world tries to overtake the patriotism. So it is me, the boss, and I'm the patriot, and it is you. And you are traitors and foreign mercenaries and junkies and Al-Qaeda terrorists. There is a limited number of labels autocrats will use to label the movement. You can predict these labels and you can play back. We overtook every single symbol of national identification. Clenched fist, coming from anti-fascist struggle from 40s and 50s. And it's also leftist. So we took the left and we took the national symbol of being anti-fascist. State holidays. Every state holiday was celebrated by upper movement because we love our state. State flags, look at the Arab Spring. Everybody is marked with a state flag. So it is us, the people, who are patriotic, and it is you who should lead. So you can shift every single way these guys are playing with loyalty. You can even shift the head. This is the most complicated. And this is told to you by a man who smoked 50 cigarettes a day, 18 years. But habits can be broken. Takes time, takes energy, but habits can be broken. So this is how these things operate. You need to understand the very nature of obedience, and you can go and build step by step. So now, how do you do this? You do this on a variety of levels. First, you do it on a propaganda level. You keep reassuring people that yes, they can do it. Yes, we can. You're seeing the ways the spin doctors are playing with this every day, everywhere, in political campaigns, in marketing campaigns. You can watch in a certain target group. You can look at the business community, assure them what is in their best self-interest. You can look at the ethnic groups. Look at Syria now. Assad is clinging on his Alawite minority, and he survives on the fear of the Christians and Kurds. Christians, that they will be eaten by the majority of Sunnis, and Kurds, that once the Turkey steps in, they will be treated like they're treated in Turkey. So you need to reassure these groups that if united we stand, we will blah, blah, blah. And then you need to take and shift these loyalties from the government. But this can be done if you understand the way your opponent plays. And it plays by this thing. So, but what we need to understand, and as Slobo said yesterday, loyalty is very individual thing. And this is where we use a trick, which he mentioned yesterday. And this is the loyalty pie. Every single person in the world owes loyalty to different things. And there are absolutely no two identical people in the world. So whom do we owe our loyalty to? Okay, these are two very different people. So obviously, we owe our loyalty to the family. We owe our loyalty to our friends. If we are religious, we owe our loyalty to our religious group or church. If we are politically affiliated, we owe our loyalty to the political party. So we are the Republicans, Democrats, whatever. Then, of course, we owe our loyalty to the state. This is the very blurry zone. This is what propaganda sells you as patriotic. So, you know, it's like, how much loyalty do you owe to the state? I'm always impressed with how you Americans are disciplined and you love your state. I mean, Chinese are even better in this. You guys pay taxes? Yes? Oh, where I'm coming from, it's so off. In is to find a way to evade taxes. And, oh, look, it's same in Italy, in Spain. It's a kind of the mentality. You look at these things, and you need to understand that the structure of every individual is very different. And then, of course, people owe loyalties to the hobbies. I'm addicted to fishing. I love my fishing weekends. I even persuaded my wife to love my fishing weekends, so she goes with me. I love my fishing buddies. So this is a very important part of my life. And I owe my loyalty to these kind of things. So what you basically do, and what state basically tries to do, they try to eat every single piece of your loyalty pie. They try to cut your pie, they try to eat your pie. Slobo was giving you the example. The state will try to infiltrate your friends and allege them to the groups. The state will try to get inside the churches, so you make sure that what these preachers and mullahs, you know, like in Iran, what they're telling you is that you owe your allegiance to the state. Of course, in authoritarian regimes, you have only one political party, and everybody belongs to that one political party. The same works with your families. The state will even organize pseudo-labor unions and pseudo-unions of the, you know, in Tito's Yugoslavia, there was only one national fishing organization. There is only one state-sponsored sports organization. There were a variety of the sports club, but every single one was infiltrated and controlled by the state. So the state takes care that it infiltrates every single piece of your family. Now what if we shift the loyalties? And we are running this powerful nonviolent movement, and this is this guy here who is very loyal to the state. And he keeps loyal to this bad government whatsoever. But he wakes up, and he goes to work. And then on a coffee and cigarette break, nobody wants to smoke and drink coffee with this guy because he's affiliated with the government. He's a stupid idiot. People despise him. They don't want to hang out with him. After work, everybody else goes to beer. Nobody wants to have beer with this man. So his friends don't like him. His expanded family don't like him. He goes to the church, but instead of listening to the sermon to the state, he listens to the priest who calls up for more freedom, like in the cases of South Africa, like in the cases of Poland, Philippines, recently Arab Spring. So even in the church, he keeps getting the message that he's wrong. At the end of the day, nobody wants to go on a sports match or fishing with him. The total defeat is when he gets home. And he gets the ultimate sanctions. No lunch and cold bed from his wife. And then his kids come back from the school and said that they have been humiliated by their friends because their father is stupidly supporting this bad government. You understand? This is how you work. But this is technology. And authoritarians know this. And I mean, it has been analyzed many, many times. So in order to shift loyalties and make people struggle against the status quo, you need to understand that every single person is different, but also you need to get different reassurance. So different ways of obedience can be broken by different involvement of breaking down these patterns, but also you need to understand that obedience and loyalty pie is a very, very individual category. So normally we would spend some time defining this thing, and then this is like daily roles. Even during the day, have you ever imagined what different roles you play during the day? Okay, when I'm in New York and teaching on NYU, I'm kind of teacher. I'm beloved husband and soon-to-be father. I'm absolutely proud of my fantastic fishing skills. Twice a week I play a guitar with some friends, so I'm also kind of the amateur rock musician. So during the week you play so many roles. I'm even a member of the fitness club and one library. So the way, do you know how the companies are selling you products? They have this thing. They know this thing. Let me give you the example. What do we know about, well, it used to be Diet Coke. No, it's Coke Light. It's still Diet Coke. No, wait a second. What's the difference between Diet Coke and the Coke Zero, and why Coke Zero? But you're the only person in the world who knows it. Come on, look at the glasses, look at the glasses. Why Coke Zero has ever been invented? For whom?
For the ordinary diet soda drinkers. Or people who weren't drinking diet soda and now say, oh, I can go with zero.
It's more masculine. So this is how it worked. You have us. No, this is how they worked. They were looking at this Coke, and then they said everybody drinks Coke, but this is so unhealthy. And we don't really care about if it's unhealthy, but people get fat. And people are 30 years ago getting obsessed by getting fat, so we will do the Diet Coke or the Coke Light. But then it's like, this is so unmasculine to drink the Diet Coke or Coke Light. And then they invented the Coke Zero, which is basically the same shit. But when you look at the commercials, they're completely different.
I was just gonna say, I don't know if anyone saw that, but when Dr. Pepper came out with their diet drink, their commercials were only for men. Yeah, they specifically said this drink is not for women, it's a manly drink.
But you don't think about this thing. So let me give you another example. Where is my beloved juice? Where is my beloved juice? Okay. There is this company from California. Are we good with the sound? Yes. There is this company from California producing orange juices. And they want to increase their sales. And they put more money into outdoor advertisement, into TV commercials. Ooh, it's a good one. And they can't make the sales. So they call the spin doctor, this $2,000 an hour genius, to try to help them. And the reason why this guy costs so much is because he asks the right questions. So what they do is that they are looking at their spending budget. They're spending so much money on advertising, and there is no increase in salaries. Basically what they do, they're advertising orange juice together with our soft drinks. Coke, whatever, sodas, blah, 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 blah. Basically, in the breaks of the Super Bowl, and you know where they put these commercials. Movies, blah, 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 blah. So this very clever and expensive guy brings a focus group of the potential consumers and asks them only one question. What is your first affiliation when I say orange juice? And then people give all types of different answers. He counts the answers. The most common answer is the one he's looking at. And the most common answer is that your first association with the orange juice is that gives you freshness and the energy for the day. Which leads us to the conclusion that the most common time that I would buy an orange juice is at the beginning of the day. So they move commercial for this orange juice from the commercials with soft drinks into the commercials with milk, yogurt, and cereals. They increase sale 15%. Why? Because when you watch the commercial for the milk, this is where you are getting prepared for your grocery store. This is when you are mom. You are wearing your mom's hat, and they're selling this to you. Do you know the Mr. Proper? Well, sorry, it's Mr. Proper in Europe. What is happening with, how do the commercials with this guy look? First of all, how he looks. Masculine, cool, yes. There is always one scenario with these commercials, yes? How it looks, come on.
I think it's like a girl, a woman struggling or something, and he just pops up and he's like, hey.
And she sits on her ass, and the house gets clean. And then he appears like, why? Because who is the decision maker of buying when it comes to the home chemistry? Women. So this is where I'm selling it. So look at this. You want to sell Diet Coke? Where would you put a billboard? In a fancy restaurant? In the gym. Because this is where you are sweating, trying to burn these goddamn extra calories. You understand? But this is because the company knows that this is your hat at that moment. So you're playing so many different roles throughout the day. And they're not going to put it in a church or anywhere near church, because this is not the place you're thinking about the calories. But then on the way to the church, you'll have 15 different people, Salvation Army, this and that. They're going to give you the leaflets so you give up a piece of your riches to help the poor. Because they know that on your way on the church, you wear that hat. Have you ever thought about this? Well, this is how it works. That's the bad news. And I mean, it's like when you look at these stuff, this is absolutely sane when it comes to building the movement. You need to understand how the people loyalties work. You need to somehow stick with these loyalties. You need to shift these loyalties. And you need to know what to sell and when to sell it. We'll speak more about the propaganda and targeted communication, how we define your messages in a nonviolent movement. But before all, you need to understand that there are various reasons why people obey, that every single type of reason can be broken down, and you can shift these loyalties, that every single person has many different pieces of the loyalty pie, and then this even varies throughout the day or the week. And when you look at a person as a very complex thing, you know that you have many loyalties, but these things can be changed. Questions? That was shocking morning, huh? You now understand why Serbs need to be bombed all time, every time. Because we are like the cockroaches. If one of us survive, it's too much. Okay, so now I will call Slobo, and you will tell me the story of your pillars. You listed the pillars yesterday, because he's going to introduce you to the next exercise we call power graph. Okay? Let me find Slobo. Yeah. Slobo. Slobi.